Before anything else, this video might come out after Turkey's upcoming elections. As of the time of this writing, the current president Recep Erdogan seems to be on track to lose the presidential elections scheduled for May 14th. He is noticeably trailing behind the main opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu in the polls, and there is no indication of the gap narrowing. While Kılıçdaroğlu's strong performance in the polls has generated hope in the Western countries, particularly those frustrated by Erdogan's obstructive stance regarding Sweden's accession of NATO, it has also raised concerns about a potential constitutional crisis if Erdogan refuses to relinquish power. Therefore, in this video, we will examine the possibilities of Erdogan losing the upcoming election, the stipulations of Turkish law regarding this scenario, and whether Erdogan would genuinely consent to a peaceful transfer of power, irrespective of legal obligations. Firstly, let us examine the reasons why Erdogan has lost or could have lost, depending on the outcome of the elections. To put it simply, the polls indicate that both Erdogan and his AKP party are presently trailing behind the opposition coalition consisting of 6 parties, along with their presidential candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. From our perspective, there are primarily 2 key factors contributing to Erdogan's decline. The first is his mishandling of the Turkish economy, and the second is his government's inadequate response to the earthquake that occurred earlier this year. Let's begin with the economy, which holds significant importance for Turkey due to its heavy reliance on imports. Last year, Turkey experienced a substantial increase in its inflation rate. Typically, central banks raise interest rates to counter inflation. However, Erdogan took a different approach by choosing to reduce rates and dismiss any central banker who opposed his decision. As a result, the central banks have reduced rates from 19% in March 2021 to the current rate of 10.5%. As anticipated, this has led to a surge in year-on-year inflation surpassing 80% by the end of last year, with unofficial estimates indicating that it may have exceeded 100%. The rapid escalation in prices has negatively impacted the living standards of ordinary Turkish citizens and has undermined Erdogan's economic track record. The second reason is Erdogan's response to the earthquake that occurred in Syria and affected Turkey earlier this year. The earthquake was immensely destructive, resulting in tens of thousands of fatalities and displacing over 1 million individuals. According to the United Nations, the estimated cost of the damage is expected to exceed $100 billion, which accounts for more than 10% of Turkey's GDP. Undoubtedly, a natural disaster cannot be attributed to anyone's fault. However, Erdogan faced criticism both for his response to the disaster and certain policies that preceded it. Turkey's search and rescue teams faced delays in arriving at the affected area, which drew criticism. Additionally, Erdogan's government received criticism for misusing the natural disaster tax revenues, amounting to approximately $3.5 billion, and for inadequate enforcement of safety regulations that were implemented following the 1999 earthquake. Anyway, due to these reasons, according to the majority of polls, Erdogan found himself a few points behind Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu in the presidential election, and it is likely that his AKP party will lose its majority in the parliamentary elections. However, this does not necessarily guarantee Erdogan's defeat. After all, Erdogan is known for his political astuteness. It is important to note that polling in Turkey is not highly dependable, and although the opposition currently holds a lead, it is not due to an overwhelming love for the opposition, but rather a wariness of Erdogan's rule. Therefore, the situation could have easily been reversed. Nevertheless, considering the current situation, Kılıçdaroğlu is the favored candidate, according to bookmakers. This raises the question of what would happen if he were to win. According to the 2012 law on presidential elections, it is the responsibility of the Supreme Election Council to officially declare the winner of the election. The Supreme Election Council is the highest electoral authority in Turkey. It was established under the 1950 Deputies Election Law, and its constitutional role was solidified by the 1961 Constitution following the 1960 military coup. The council is composed of 7 distinguished Turkish judges who are elected by other senior judges within the Turkish court system. Importantly, its decisions cannot be appealed to any other court. Political parties that have achieved success are permitted to assign observers to the Supreme Election Council. However, these observers do not possess voting rights in the council's decisions. This is why, unlike other segments of Turkey's judiciary, the council has maintained its independence throughout Erdogan's term. If everything goes as intended, the Supreme Election Council will inform Erdogan that he had lost the election. Even if Erdogan disagrees with the outcome, he would be unable to challenge the results through an appeal. Consequently, Kılıçdaroğlu will proceed to take the presidential oath within a day or so, officially assuming the position of Turkey's new president. This is the expected outcome, but there are doubts about whether Erdogan will genuinely accept a peaceful transfer of power. Regrettably, there is a reason for concern. One reason is that Erdogan has previously contested election results, particularly during the 2019 Istanbul mayoral election, where he called for a redo of the election but ended up facing a significant defeat in the subsequent vote. Although Erdogan eventually acknowledged the results, the initial resistance raises doubts about his willingness to peacefully accept defeat. Furthermore, it is worth noting that in Turkey's modern history, there have been only a few instances of peaceful transitions of power from the Turkish head of state. Interestingly, no Turkish president has ever been directly voted out of office. The first president, Mustafa Atatürk, passed away while in office. His successor abstained from holding elections for 12 years and eventually stepped down following a decisive defeat. The third president managed to hold on to power for a decade before being ousted through a military coup and promptly imprisoned. During the 1960s and 70s, parliamentary elections were held in Turkey. However, the military regained control over the presidency throughout this period. In 1980, a coup took place when the military couldn't identify a suitable candidate for the presidency. Subsequently, another general was installed as Turkey's seventh president by the military, and he relinquished power upon his retirement in 1989. Following him, a popular member of parliament and leader of the Motherland Party assumed the presidency, becoming Turkey's first civilian president since 1960. Unfortunately, he passed away unexpectedly due to a heart attack in 1993 before completing his term. Consequently, the then Prime Minister Süleyman Demirel automatically succeeded him at the end of his term. After his unsuccessful attempt to pass a constitutional amendment enabling him to serve a second term, Demirel was replaced by Ahmet Necdet Sezer, the president of the Constitutional Court, who was considered a technocrat and the least controversial choice for the Turkish parliament. In 2003, Erdogan was elected as the prime minister and has effectively maintained his grip on power ever since. In 2007, Erdogan installed his AKP ally, Abdullah Gül, as the president when Sezer's term came to an end. Subsequently, Gül willingly transferred power to Erdogan in 2014. Therefore, based on the limited instances of Turkish presidents peacefully transferring power to an opposing candidate, it raises questions about the prospects of Turkey's opposition. The lesson from the 2019 mayoral election suggests that if the opposition aims to remove Erdogan from power without causing a constitutional crisis, they must secure a victory by a significant and indisputable margin. This may require the opposition to offer the Turkish electorate a more positive vision before simply ending Erdogan's rule. Now that the elections are over, what are your thoughts for the future of Turkey? Comment your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with our latest uploads.